So I'm going to do a video here, it's on the side video, of how names function in the quote-unquote Middle Ages, medieval, Renaissance, etc. Because that's the beginning of our history, actually, if you follow Flamenco and Navosky. But there is some names just come to us as they are, like David. We know that name. David the Builder. All these Georgian kings named David. Are they the David of the Bible? These are the things that cause issue. Suleiman. Well, that's obviously Solomon. Suleiman the Magnificent. We see that. Now, are there other, like, we're given places in the Bible and the Quran, in Hebrew and Arabic. We're given the place names. Heshbon, Gilgal, Shiloh, Jerusalem. Well, Jerusalem's a place, it's a nickname anyway. It means city of peace. But you were given these names of places. They're all through the Old Testament. They're even in the New Testament. Bethsaida. You know, I mean, they're all over the place, these names. Now, David Owen Jr. had pointed out, as Flamenco had pointed out, that when we look in the museums at these coins, they're all in Arabic. Now, because they're all in Arabic, and we're not talking down in the Ottoman Empire, we're talking all over Europe. All the coins, and by the way, they're also in America. At the Smithsonian, oh, they're not going to tell you because they put them in the basement. But they're all over Eurasia, even up in all the coins in Scandinavia in Arabic. So, how do you reconstruct names? Now, here's the problem we have. So, for instance, if I were to say that Dmitry Donsky is a duplicate of David, King David, and his son is named Vasily, how is that Solomon? Well, here's the thing. There are 4 rules you have to make, first of all. Yes, the first one is similarity. Obviously, Suleiman and Solomon are the same name. Obviously, there are other names. Like, when we see Ezekios, Isa, Jesus. We see a similarity. But there's other things. This rule. Hey, wake up. Open your eyes. Reverse. This rule is number 1. Because in what quote unquote Semitic language, I don't like using that term. In quote unquote Hebrew, by the way, try and decipher the word Hebrew. Oh, did you just reach Arabic? In Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic, quote unquote, and all these Eastern, Middle Eastern languages, you have to reverse. What that means is that, for instance, oh, they were the Romans, were they? Are you sure? Or were they the Moors? You have to reverse in the word order in some cases. And this is number 1. I don't care about similarity so much. I care about reversing the word order. How did it appear in the East as opposed to the West? Because the West is going to say it one way, the East is going to say it a completely different way. By the way, this applies in Chinese. This applies in all these Eastern languages. Reverse. Vowels. Oh. Well, this is where people start getting all goofy with vowels. Oh, well, this word, like David, let's just take the name David. You gotta get rid of the vowels. So, Dawud. The V and O. Just a minute. You just made me add another thing, and that's interchangeability. So this is where for instance, people will say Jehovah with a V. it can also be a W. And just like David can be Dawid. Again, you get rid of the vowel, and there's an interchangeability that can occur. Because you're reversing things, there's similarity, there's vowel change, there's an interchangeability. But the last one just destroys half of these identification, and it's nicknames. And it's not just nicknames. I mean, obviously you give people nicknames. I've had nicknames, I've had several nicknames. Everybody has some nicknames that people call it, even if you don't know. Let's be honest. Obviously, we all have nicknames, even if they're nicknames we don't want. People call it that from kindergarten all the way. People in adulthood, I'm 48 almost. People call us nicknames. I'm called nicknames. I don't like them, but they're nicknames. And sometimes I like the nickname, sometimes I don't. I just go along with it because it's just what. And so we'll call nicknames. So people call nicknames based on sometimes with their deeds, sometimes things they said, sometimes we're all called nicknames. So why is it any different from the past? So if I'm writing a document, do you think in this history of world, this is World Durant's history set. He assigns everybody one name. But is that accurate? No, because they have many names. People have many names. And when you follow this rule, you start to realize that people have more than one name. Number one, they had several names. Some rulers had as many as 20 names. And some names were nicknames, like Genghis Khan. Not a name. Not a name. Okay, Khan is a name. I learned that in school. When my teacher told me, your teacher's an idiot. Most of the education you're putting your kids into is idiotic. It's stupid. Your teacher's an idiot. If they're teaching you the Genghis Khan, it's this guy's name. That's wrong. Genghis is great. Khan is king. Look, it's a nickname. It's not the person's name. Now you can find the person's name on quote-unquote Wikipedia, which leads to more problems when you apply this. One thing that starts coming apparent if you start comparing all of the history from, if you divide from about Turkey and go east, and don't include Europe, if you go east, you start to see that all these people might be the same people. And that is what people get into when they point out things like Tartaria. Let me bring it over here. When they point in things like Tartaria, they point out that there might have been a global empire, and they point out things like Tartaria. But before we even do that, we need to understand that we have to get the names of people can vary very greatly. If I'm in Turkey and I say my name is this, without vowel, because it's in Arabic, and then I go to Russia and we have vowel, but my name might be reversed. My name might be in Slavonic text. If I go to China, my name doesn't have vowels anymore. Now it's being put in what I would consider a picture language, a language which is very beautiful, but it uses a form, it doesn't have an alphabet. It uses a different type of. So how is it going to be the same? If I go to India, Sanskrit, Punjabi, all these other languages, they're going to write it a different way. By the way, they do have an alphabet. If I write it in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, which has only existed, by the way, modern Hebrew, wake up, open your mind, has only existed since the late 19th century. Yeah, look it up. If I go to look at my name in Hebrew or look up somebody else's name in Hebrew, it's going to be different. My name comes from Hebrew. My name's Simeon. I'm going to tell you that. My name's Simeon. It comes from Hebrew. It means hearing. The Greek version is Simon. You can find hundreds of versions of this name all around the world. And sometimes, and if I have a nickname, I have nicknames. I'm not going to tell you them. But I have, they're going to be in different language. You see how this is starting to, because once you start applying this rule, once you start applying that, what happens? It means that one ruler in this country, what is he called in another country? So you're saying, well, Georgia and Russia were separate countries. Were they? When you start applying this, it doesn't look like it. China and Russia were separate countries, are you sure? Turkey and Russia were separate countries, are you sure? All these eastern countries were supposedly separate countries, yet they've all got the same history once you do this. They've all got the same history. And biblically, the Bible gives it names that we know these names because we grew up with them. Samuel, David, Saul, Moses, Jesus, Peter, Paul, John. We know these names. All those names are in the ancient world. And when I say the ancient world, I mean about 1,000 years ago, less than 1,000 years ago. We need to be careful. And this is where I pick up my research and I look at these names. Where Flamenco and Navarsky look at these names, and they found the biblical Samuel in Russia, in Russian records. That is, not that he was there. I don't know. We're gonna look at that, but we will look at that on this channel. But they found the biblical Samuel, and then when they started looking at the name of his father's name is Elkanah in 1 Samuel chapter 1. They found his father under a different name, but then they found underneath Elkanah. He had two names. He probably had more than two names, but those were the ones that were given. Science. This is science. Well, I think science is listening to the professor and going blah blah blah. Yes, sir, you're right. That's what science is today in university and lecture hall. This is science. Mathematics. Linguistics. This is science. That is not science. If you're indoctrinated, that's not science. That's religion. And you say, why people? No. I've always said when I start doing a theological topic, this is how it could be. I'm allowing you to use your mind. Am I right? I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. So, linguistics, very important to understand linguistics. How names change. Now, I'm literally wearing a shirt here for nerd fusion. Look at this. A symbol. Oh no. In 1,000 years, what will people think of it? You see my point? We need to use our mind. This globe is in Latin, fortunately. If this globe was in Arabic, it would say something completely different. But it would be talking about the same thing. Are you starting to see the point? Linguistics. In the Cebuano language in the Philippines, which by the way, Spanish. Yeah, which derived from Arabic, by the way, backwards. So the most Latin. Latin is Arabic backwards. I'm going to say it right now. The king is called Henry. You sure that's the name? Charles Khan. You sure that's the name? You see, all your famous kings might actually be called by their titles. So this is the rule of thumb that you can use to reconstruct a lot of stuff. Fortunately, we have the capability of doing this today. Flamenco Navarrete came out of the 80s and 90s out of the Iron Curtain, and when they started actually being able to access this stuff, that's when they wrote the material. But they were doing all the mathematical stuff behind the Iron Curtain. We, with AI and other researchers, can do way more than they could. So don't go around saying, I'm stupid. You're not stupid. You have the capability to do more than these men did. Not mathematically. These guys are mathematicians. You have the ability to do more than they did if you use these rules of thumb and apply it to what's there. Thank you.